Hi, my name is Aurelia from 11 Philip, absent 26, and now I'm going to tell you the history about the arrival of the Europeans to Nusantara. As you know that there are four countries that arrived in the Nusantara. The first one is the Portuguese, the second one is Spanish, the third one is Dutch, and the fourth one is English. Okay, before we start to the video, I'm just going to say that in this video there will be two sessions. In the first session, I'll tell you about the arrival of the Portuguese, Spanish, and the Dutch to Nusantara. And in the second session, I'll be talking about the arrival of the English to Nusantara, the political policies that the Europeans made, and the last but not least is the impacts of the colonialism to Nusantara or Indonesia. So now let us go to the video. So now I'm going to tell you about the history first of the arrival of the Portuguese to Nusantara. So the Portuguese entered Nusantara under the leadership of Alfonso de Albuquerque. In the period between 1511 to 1526, Nusantara became an important maritime port for the Portuguese, with Sumatra, Java, Banda, and Maluku as a maritime route, and the spice trade. Not long after being appointed as the governor of Portugal in India, Alfonso made an expedition to Nusantara. Before that, the Portuguese had rules over India and set up a government there. The first objective of the military expedition is Malacca. He arrived at the place on July 1511. Furthermore, on August 10, 1511, the Portuguese conquered Malacca. Since then, the Portuguese have rules entirely of the spice trade from Asia to Europe. This also made Nusantara immediately known by the other European nations, such as Spain, England, and the Netherlands. After controlling Malacca, the Portuguese had a relationship with the Kingdom of Sunda, or Pajajaran Kingdom, or you can call it as Hindu Kingdom. The two of them signed a trade agreement, especially the pepper trade. The trade agreement then manifested in 1522 in a document formed contract in the form of an inscription, known as Padro Sunda Kokona. This padro is placed on a designated land as a place to build a fortress and storehouse for the Portuguese. Later, the Portuguese-Pajajaran alliance worried about the Demak Sultanate. Because of the worry about occupation of Java by the Portuguese, Demak attacked Sunda Kelapa in 1526. In 1527, Demak managed to expel the Portuguese from Sunda Kelapa. Portuguese intends to build a fort there as an application for the agreement between the Portuguese and the Kingdom of Pajajaran. Most likely because they were pressed and got resistant views from the Sultanate of Demak. Later, the Portuguese more mostly operate on the Spice Island, which is Maluku. However, in its development, the Portuguese continued to place their trading ships in Banten in limited quantities. They made an expedition to Maluku in 1999. The expedition was led by Albuquerque's envoy, whose name is Antonio de Abreu, and Francisco Zerral. They threw the anchor in Banda Island, Penyu Island, and Ternate. In Ambon, the Portuguese were given the permission to build a fortress in Picauli, Negeri Hitu Lama, and Mamala. They also pioneered the Ternate Malacca Goa Lisbon. In Ternate, the Portuguese made a friendship and fellowship with the Sultanate of Ternate, Islamic style. Portuguese established trade relations with the Sultanate, especially spices, such as cloves and nutmeg. In fact, Sultanate allowed the Portuguese to build a fortress, which name is Fort Sao Paulo or Gamalama Fort. Apart from protecting the interests of Portuguese, the construction of the fort is very clear that the Portuguese had commit to maintain and protect Ternate from the threat of the enemies and competitors. At that time, Ternate really had an interest in accepting the Portuguese in order to balance the competitors who is Sultanate of Tidore. The monopoly of Portuguese about the spice trade in Nusantara was ended after being defeated by Sultan Babullah from Ternate on 1575. The Portuguese was get rid by the Dutch from Ambon on 1599. So that is the history of the arrival of Portuguese to Nusantara. And now I'm going to tell you about the arrival of Spanish to Nusantara. The arrival of Spanish were not long in Nusantara, which is only for about 8 years, 1521 until 1529. First, entered the Philippines through Ferdinand Magellan's. Spanish succeeded on reaching to Maluku Island on 1552, under the leadership of Captain Sebastian de Elcano. The Spanish sailors then anchored in Tidore, and was greeted well by the Sultanate of Tidore. This good greeting gave the political elements. The Tidore Sultanate was involved in the economic competition and politics with the Ternate Sultanate, which made Tidore Sultanate needed an ally. The mission was to be balanced with the Ternate, which already allied the Portuguese. The arrival of Spanish in Tidore made the Portuguese become disturbed, because that means Spanish will be involved too in the spice trading. So there was a conflict between both of the countries. Portuguese accused that Spain violated the Tordesillas Agreement on 1494. Meanwhile, the Spain insists that the Maluku region is part of the territory power under the same agreement. To finish the conflict, Portugal and Spanish negotiate in Saragossa, Spanish, on 1529. The result was the Zaragoza Agreement, which was signed on 22 April that year. This agreement decides the boundary, which saw a west for Spanish and east to Portuguese. So Spanish left Maluku to get Philippines, while Portuguese was still in charge in Maluku Island. This agreement emphasized the Tordesillas Agreements on 1494. So that is the history for the arrival of Spanish to Nusantara. And now I'm going to tell you about the arrival of Dutch to Nusantara. So this is when the Dutch entered Nusantara. The Dutch sailors managed to find the spice route of Asia that the Portuguese had hid. On 1595, a company in Netherlands named Kambagni van Were paid for the expedition of Cornelis de Houtman to Nusantara. On 22 June, after sailed for 14 months, they arrived in the port of Banten. Their arrival didn't succeed because they only bring a little spice. It is all because of the attitude that Cornelis de Houtman have, which is arrogance. He made conflict with the rule of Banten. Even though they failed, they had the second expedition to open the road to Nusantara. The second expedition was on 1598 to 1600 under the reign of Gizi van Eyck. Not like the first expedition, Van Eyck was welcomed by the Sultan of Banten. It is because several months earlier, Banten was involved in a war with Portuguese that damaged Banten. That's why Netherlands was expected to become their ally to attack Portuguese. In that case, Netherlands was very benefited. Before coming back to Netherlands to bring a lot of spices, Van Eyck asked some of the ships to sail to Maluku Island in the reign of Wybrand van Warwick. They arrived in Ambon on 1599. Because of the limited spices on Ambon, they continued to Ternate in the reign of Van Warwick and went to Banda Island under the reign of Hermes Church. Both in Ternate and Banda, Netherlands was welcome because it had been a long time when they had damage from the monopoly on the spice trading. They wished that the Netherlands will help them and become their ally. This condition brought a benefit to Netherlands. On 1600, Muslims hit in Ambon made allies with the Netherlands to expel the Portuguese. In return, Netherlands was given the right to buy the spices from Hitu. On 1605, Netherlands succeeded to force the Portuguese to give the stronghold in Ambon to Stephen van der Hagen, and in Tidore to Cornelis Sebastian. On 1623, Banda Island was mastered by the Netherlands. Since that, Netherlands completely monopolized the spice trade in Maluku and surroundings. So, that is for the history of the arrival of Dutch to Nusantara. Okay, so now let us go to the second session. In this second session, I'll be talking about the arrival of English to Nusantara, the political policies that the Europeans made for the Nusantara, and the last but not least is the impact of colonialism to Nusantara. So let us go to the second session. Okay, so for the arrival of English, the English nation began when the explorer named Francis Drake and Thomas Cavendish stopped in Ternate in 1579. Then came another expedition sent in the 16th century through the East Indian Company trading partnership. In the 18th century, many traders traded in Indonesia or Nusantara, such as Ambon, Aceh, Kalimantan, Makassar, and Jakarta. On a British voyage to the east in search of spices, the British reached India. These British sailors and traders entered India in 1600. The British actually strengthened their position in India. The British formed a trading partnership called the East India Company, or we can call it as EIC. English explorer named Henry Hudson made two unsuccessful sailing voyages in search of an ice-free passage to Asia. In 1609, he embarked on a third voyage funded by the Dutch East India Company that took home to the New World. Henry Hudson was a determined captain, explorer, and navigator, but he never achieved in finding passage to Asia. So that is it for the history of the arrival of English to Nusantara. And now I'm going to tell you about the European policies that the Europeans made for the Nusantara. Because of the intense competition between the Dutch and other traders, like Portuguese and English, the Dutch made the union to the sixth city in the Netherlands, which is called as VOC, or we can call it as Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie. VOC is formed in March 20, 1602, under the leadership of Johan Barneveld, for a reason. VOC is formed to avoid the unfair competition among fellow Dutch traders. After occupying Indonesia and monopolizing the spices, Netherlands made some policy. Now I'm going to tell you about the tax policy that the Dutch made. The first one is the contingenten. So, the contingenten is a mandatory tax in the form of agricultural products, which is directly handed over to the VOC. Parts of the agricultural products must be submitted to government as tax. The impact of contingenten is that it caused the reduction of people's income because some of their crops had to be paid to the VOC. This tax was applied in the colony areas such as Batavia. The second tax that the Dutch made for the Nusantara is called as the Verplichte Leverantie. Verplichte Leverantie is an obligation for the indigenous people to sell their agricultural products only to the VOC at the price that is set by the VOC. The impact of the Verplichte Leverantie is that it costs a lot of colonized people to have poverty and hunger because they need to sell the product to VOC with the price that is set by the VOC itself. Of course, the price is not that expensive because it is still counted as tax. Both of tax is collected by the native elites who work for the VOC. There is also an extirpation policy, which is cutting down the excess number of plants so that the production is not excessive so that the price can still be maintained. VOC also will deal violence if the country against their policy, such as capture the sultan and throw them to an abandoned island or other country. There is also a Hongi expedition. Hongi Tahtan expedition is a form of shipping that VOC do to take care of the monopoly spices in Maluku. There is also the policies of English, which are to build a fortress, like Lodewijk Fort in Surabaya, build a naval base, army that consists of native people, arms factory, and hospitals. There is also a policy called as the Kulturstelsel. In this policy, people are forced to plant the export plants and then sell it to the Dutch. So that are the policies, some of the policies that the Europeans made for the Nusantara. And now I'm going to tell you about the impacts of colonialism in the political, cultural, social, economic, and education field for the Nusantara. The impact of Portuguese colonialism for the religion is that the Portuguese made the Catholic religion spread wider in Nusantara. When Portuguese comes to Nusantara, the religion of the Christian and Catholic religion spread wider and wider. Portuguese also gave the impact to the music in Nusantara, which is called as the keroncong music. Portuguese also give impact from the language. From the language, there are some of Indonesian language that is similar to the Portuguese language. Then there is also the impact from the Dutch to the education of the Nusantara or Indonesia. The education level became higher and the education system also increased. There is also some words that are similar to the Dutch language. There is also an impact to our lifestyle. Some of the people of Indonesia have that kind of style that looks like Western. That kind of lifestyle are like drinking alcohol, partying, dancing, and others. From the economic field, there is also impact to the farmer. Because of the forced cropping system, or as we know as the Kulturstelsel. By having the forcing of the cropping system, the farmer knows kind of plants like coffee and tea. So the farmer know new plants. There's also the impact from the money. People of Indonesia now knows that there is other way of paying without using barter, which is using money. So Indonesian people know money because of the impact of the colonialism. There's also an impact in our political life, which is our bureaucratic thing. The colonial government system under the Governor General was designed like the institution that we know now. So that are the impacts of the colonialism in Nusantara. And that are so colonialism isn't always giving us like a negative impact, but it also can give us a positive impact, like higher education level, higher knowledge, higher music levels, and other kinds of positive things. So we can learn that colonialism isn't always bad. We can always become more successful after being colonized. So I'm Valen, and that's it. So that that's it for now. I'm done in explaining about the history about the colonialism by the four countries. So the colonialism that I told you is the colonialism by the Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and English to Nusantara. And I had already told you too about the political policies that the Europeans made for Nusantara. And last but not least, I have told you also about the impacts of the colonialism. So that is it for now, and thank you for watching.